This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Today, the productivity gap between Europe and the US widens. Portugal announced their election results, and Xi takes more control. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Monday, the 11th of March, 2024. The productivity gap between Europe and the US has widened even further, according to data from late last week. For context, productivity is basically a measure of economic output, or GDP, per hour of work, and it's pretty much the most important metric in economics. If your GDP is growing but your productivity isn't, then that just means that you've either got more people or you're working more hours, which means your actual living standards are unlikely to be improving all that much. Nobel Prize-winning economist Paul Krugman once said that productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it's almost everything. Anyway, for the past 2 decades or so, America's productivity has been growing faster than Europe's. According to a recent analysis by the Financial Times, between 2004 and today, US productivity grew by about 37%, while Eurozone productivity only grew by about 13%. Despite the fact that Europe actually started off from a lower base than the US. According to OECD data from 2022, America's productivity is now about $72 per hour, while the EU's is about $56. This has sparked some anxiety amongst European policymakers, who've started talking about the EU's competitiveness crisis. Unfortunately for Europe, data from the American Bureau of Labour Statistics and Eurostat, released on Thursday and Friday respectively for the final quarter of 2023, suggests that Europe's so-called competitiveness crisis is only getting worse. While US productivity is up 2.6% in the past year, Eurozone productivity actually fell by 1.2% in the same period. Now, it's important not to overstate the severity of this crisis. Europe has been afflicted by a series of crises, including a war on the continent and an energy shock, which have hurt European industry. It's also worth mentioning that the productivity gap can be overstated due to the fact that it's usually calculated using dollar-denominated GDP, which means that European productivity looks particularly low when the euro is weak or the dollar is strong. And even those currency fluctuations, especially with regard to the dollar, don't necessarily reflect an economy's actual strength. Nonetheless, even if we take these numbers with a pinch of salt, it's at least true to say that European productivity growth has slowed conspicuously. And this is a real problem for the EU, because the remedy usually prescribed by economists is more investment. Unfortunately for Europe, strained national budgets mean finding the money for productivity-boosting public investment, let alone the levels of investment we're currently seeing in the US, won't be easy. There's more on the way, but be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to make the daily briefing part of your daily routine, or just search for us on your podcast app to listen along. On Sunday, Portugal went to the polls for its second general election in just over 2 years. A few months after the Socialist Party's majority government collapsed in scandal. The election was nominally won by a coalition led by centre-right Social Democrats, but they fell a long way short of a majority, winning 79 seats in Portugal's 230-seat assembly, with 29.5% of the vote. This was only slightly more than the Socialists, who won 77 seats with 28.7% of the vote. In third place was a relatively new anti-establishment party called Chega, which translates to Enough, who won 18.1% of the vote and 48 seats. This leaves the leader of the Social Democrats, Luis Montenegro, with a difficult dilemma. During the campaign, he ruled out cooperating with Chega on account of their, quote, racist, populist and excessively demagogic views. But it's hard to see how he forms a majority without them. Alternatively, he could form a minority government, or a grand coalition with the Socialists, but neither of these are great options from Montenegro's perspective. Today, China's parliament voted to revise the 4-decade organic law of the State Council, which essentially gives the Communist Party more influence than the government. Li Hongzong, vice chairman of the National People's Congress Standing Committee, has stated the revision is intended to deepen reform of the party and state institutions, and fully implement the constitution. The amended State Council organic law was passed by 2,883 delegate votes, with 8 opposing and 9 abstaining. The changes included newly added articles, one which stressed the State Council must resolutely uphold the party Central Committee's authority and its centralised and unified leadership. This new article essentially erodes the executive authority of the State Council, led by Chinese Premier Li Qiang, who nominally oversees China's 21 government ministries and local governments. These changes come in the face of China's current economic slowdown. Policymakers and top officials are seeking to transform the economy, but Chinese Premier Li Qiang said it will not be easy to do so, and that therefore we need policy support and joint efforts from all fronts. The revision of the organic law of the State Council is a move towards Xi being able to gain this policy support from all fronts. For instance, aside from this new law making it easier to keep the State Council in check, the change also encourages the cabinet to follow certain ideologies, including Xi Jinping thought. As Chinese officials seek to boost the economy, similar changes to law and governmental restructuring are likely to follow. We move to the UK now, where the internet has been abuzz with talk about the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, after Reuters, the Associated Press, the AFP and Getty recalled a photo of her and her children released on Sunday, claiming that Kensington Palace had manipulated the image. Now, for context, Kate Middleton has not been seen in public since Christmas Day, and has been absent from royal duties because she's been recovering from abdominal surgery for the past 2 months. This alone sparked various theories among some people online, but things really went into overdrive on Sunday when Kensington Palace released a Mother's Day photo of Kate and her 3 children. People quickly noticed certain anomalies, such as Princess Charlotte's sleeve. Anyway, later on Sunday, 4 major picture agencies issued kill notices, in other words, removing the photo from their services, citing post-publication reviews and potential manipulation, which obviously fueled the speculation and theories even more. Eventually, on Monday morning, the palace finally broke their silence, with a short tweet signed by C, for Catherine, aka Kate, saying, "Like for many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing. I wanted to express my apologies for any confusion the family photograph we shared yesterday caused." This was obviously meant to put the issue to bed, but if you scroll through the quote tweets, you'll see it hasn't exactly done that. Finally, we end with some positive news from the sporting world. Ahead of the upcoming Paris Olympics this summer, the International Olympic Committee has given equal quotas to female and male athletes for the first time, in a historic milestone towards gender equality in sport. The participation of female athletes in the Olympics has steadily increased over the decades, from just 2.2% at Paris 1900 to an all-time high of 48% at Tokyo 2020. Paris 2024 will see gender parity across 28 out of 32 sports, and will include a more gender-balanced distribution of medal events, including 152 women's events, 157 men's events, and 20 mixed-gender events in total. A lot of stuff that we talk about at TLDR News can seem pretty complicated, especially when we dive into economics and detailed data, which is why we use Brilliant.org to keep us sharp. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. Brilliant is a learning platform designed to be uniquely effective. Their first principles approach helps you build understanding from the ground up, which is also how we structure TLDR videos. Each lesson is filled with hands-on problem solving that lets you play with concepts, a method proven to be 6 times more effective than just watching lectures. Plus, all content on Brilliant is crafted by an award-winning team of teachers, researchers, and professionals from MIT, Caltech, Duke, Microsoft, Google, and more. Brilliant helps build your critical thinking skills through problem solving, not memorizing. So, while you're building real knowledge on specific topics, you'll also be becoming a better thinker. Learning a little every day is one of the most important things you can do, both for your personal and professional growth. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time. It's the opposite of mindless scrolling. Brilliant recently launched a ton of new content in data, all of which uses real-world data to train you to see trends and make better informed decisions, something politicians could really learn from. Anyway, these are for learners of any level to start or continue learning data analysis, with a fully built out suite of new content, from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. And you can truly learn by doing, as you'll be working with real datasets from sources like Starbucks, Twitter, Spotify, and more. To try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days, click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Brilliant for their support of TLDR News.